19-year-old Owen Dietrich of Leroy, Minnesota has made his first court appearance. He's a man charged with shooting and assaulting multiple people west of PUPOSKY, Minnesota, north of Bemidji, early Sunday morning. Bail was set at $1 million with conditions. Dietrich remains in jail. His next court appearance is scheduled for May 3rd. He's applied for a public defender. For background on this story, here's our report from Tuesday. Formal charges have now been filed in a case iNewZ first told you about that happened early Sunday morning west of PUPOSKY, some 13 miles north of Bemidji, Minnesota, where 3 people were shot and assaulted. Formal charges have now been filed against 19-year-old Owen Dietrich. He's been charged with 1 count of first-degree burglary, dangerous weapon, 2 counts of second-degree attempted intentional murder, and 1 count of second-degree assault. According to court records, at 2:39 a.m. on Sunday, deputies and investigators responded to the location west of PUPOSKY. Upon arrival, deputies observed 3 victims with injuries, including at least 2 with gunshot wounds. These victims were rushed to the hospital to be treated. The investigator proceeded to the hospital to speak with the victims. The investigator spoke with the male victim, who was a boyfriend of the 17-year-old who was also assaulted in this, 17-year-old female. The male victim said he learned he was at the residence sleeping when he was awoken by a loud bang and a sharp pain in the side of his head. The male victim observed the suspect, Dietrich, standing at the foot of the bed with an object in his hands, but did not immediately recognize him. He stated he initially thought he was being robbed. After the male victim fully woke up, he recognized the suspect as Dietrich, who was a former boyfriend of the 17-year-old female in this case. He saw an object in his hands, and it was actually a gun. Male victim described the gun as being a shorter rifle and advised that he felt blood coming from the side of his head. According to the male victim, Dietrich began striking him and the female victim repeatedly with a gun while yelling at them. The male victim said he was struck in the left shoulder, left arm, and left hand after being shot. The male victim displayed numerous injuries, including an entrance and exit gunshot wound to the upper lobe of his left ear and the entrance gunshot wound to the left side of his skull. CT scans of the male victim's skull showed the intact projectile, suspected to be a .22 long rifle caliber bullet, lodged in the lower left portion of his skull. The male victim also displayed abrasions to the upper left chest as well. The investigator also spoke with the 17-year-old female victim and learned that she was sleeping when she awoke to the yelling and screaming. The male victim identified Dietrich as the attacker and advised that she observed him standing over the top of her with a gun and that he began striking them with a gun or club of some sort. The female displayed a puncture-style injury to her lower left arm, an abrasion near her eye, bruising or redness on her face, and an open bleeding wound on the right side of her head just above her right ear. Deputies observed in the room in which the male victim and 17-year-old female victim were assaulted a live .22 caliber long rifle cartridge on the floor, and a live cartridge on the bed, and a spent .22 caliber casing on the bed, a broken wooden rifle stock, and the trigger assembly from the rifle. Deputies suspected that the rifle was broken when Dietrich used it to strike the pair. Deputies observed blood on the bed and a broken gun stock and blood spatter on the wall. The investigator spoke with the third injured victim, the grandmother to the female 17-year-old, and learned she was sleeping on a couch in the living room when she awoke to her head hurting, her ears ringing, and the dogs barking. The grandmother advised that she touched the top of her head and saw blood on her hand. She proceeded to the stairs to seek help for her injury when she saw a male coming down the stairs with some type of blunt object. The grandmother stated that when this male reached the bottom of the stairs, he struck her on the top of the head with the object. A witness entering the room to see what was going on saw the moment Dietrich came down the stairs and hit the grandmother on top of the head with what they described as a stick or bat. The investigator reviewed a CT scan of the grandmother's head and observed that a projectile had been embedded into the top of her skull. The projectile was believed to be a .22 long rifle caliber bullet. Deputies attempted to locate Dietrich before receiving an update that a white van was located in the ditch off Highway 89 in the Red Lake Reservation. Upon arrival, deputies observed a white van that was resting on its side off the roadway, 1 mile northwest of the Beltrami-Clearwater line. The van appeared to have been rolled over. Officers with the Red Lake Police Department had located Dietrich in the area and detained him. Red Lake EMS had been on the scene and found no emergency medical reason to transport Dietrich to the hospital by ambulance. Beltrami deputies took custody of Dietrich and he was transported to Sanford Bemidji ER to be medically cleared before transporting him to the jail. Once in the hospital, he was examined by the on-duty ER doctor and medically cleared. Once cleared from the ER, Dietrich was transported to the Beltrami County Jail and advised of his Miranda rights. Dietrich agreed to provide a statement to Investigator Thompson and advised that he had arrived at the victim's residence west of PUPOSKY with a .22 caliber long rifle and entered through an unlocked door. Dietrich stated that he first greeted the dogs to make sure they did not bark. Unsuccessful at keeping them quiet, Dietrich stated the person who was sleeping on the couch began to stir. Dietrich admitted to hitting the woman with the rifle before approaching her from behind and shooting her in the top of the head. Dietrich recounted how he then proceeded up the stairs to the room occupied by the 17-year-old female and boyfriend, and how he aimed the gun where he thought the victim's head would be and fired it. Dietrich is unsure of how many times he fired the rifle. Dietrich stated that the victim began to react, so he began to wail on the male victim with the rifle until it started to break apart. Dietrich said that when he left the room after the rifle broke, he proceeded back downstairs. Dietrich admitted that the grandmother was standing at the foot of the stairs and he struck her in the top of the head with what was left of the rifle. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNewZ.TV.